How we doing out there, everybody? Here with you guys for our 6th week of the term. Um, Recently graded has been your literary analysis essays. Those are now completed as of you all viewing this video. A little word on those. If I ever comment that my plagiarism checker has found a significant amount of suspect usages or sentences or word choices or passages of your paper, I always do look at the report to, evaluate it myself, because sometimes that plagiarism checker is a little maybe hyperactive, and it'll flag things that you might have written, but it's not necessarily that you intentionally plagiarized. It could be a coincidence where you're just citing a commonly cited passage from the story, or it's just text from the story itself. So I go and look at it. But there are some times when I am navigated to a site via my plagiarism checker that is actually a little suspicious to me, and might indicate to me that maybe you used a secondary source, and you're not supposed to be doing that with these essays. And if you do, of course, you have to cite it appropriately. Otherwise, it does constitute plagiarizing. Same thing when you cite from the primary source, the story or the poem or whatever we're talking about. And most of you do this very well. It's the author's last name for the story, a page number, a paragraph number. For a poem, it'll be the line number or numbers, author's last name, and the parenthetical as well. And again, most of you do that just fine. And don't forget, you need to have a bibliography or works cited page as the last page of the document if you do cite from a primary source, or any source for that matter. So if you are ever, scratching your head about, hey, I didn't plagiarize, but Mr. Volpe's saying that, it looks like maybe you did, or it's suspicious, my plagiarism checker flagged this or that, you could email me and vouch for yourself, and I'll reconsider improving your grade, because again, sometimes the plagiarism checker might be a little too eager, shall we say, and of course I do check it myself as well, just to double check. But I just wanted to have that out of the gate here, just so you guys don't think I'm unfairly targeting you or have to get you or anything. It's just the thing being, I don't really know your writer's voice versus your speaker's voice, as we are remote. So it's hard for me. For example, my middle school students, I'm there with them every day. I could easily gauge how they express themselves, in a written or typed way versus how they speak. So I'll know if what they're writing doesn't sound like them, just because of me being there with them and having taught them for upwards of 3 years at this point. But with you guys, I've had some of you last semester, so I'm familiar with some of your writing, but not to that degree. So I just wanted you guys to understand that I have to rely on these tools that I have just to make sure we're all doing what we need to be doing. And speaking of which, this week, what we need to be doing, we're in our poetry unit. I will get those reader responses back on the Maya Angelou, Billy Collins analysis, reader response that you guys had to do, I believe it was last week. Other grades have been updated, but that one is next. We're still in our poetry unit. You guys are just turning in the Robert Frost and Emily Dickinson reader response. And then for this week, before we get into our next analysis essay, we are going to look at some William Shakespeare, of course. Much of our English language, different idioms we use, sort of our, vernacular in some ways has been shaped by Shakespeare. Whether we believe it, accept it, or not. So, of course, we have to look at the titan of the English language. And we're not going to look at a play. We're going to look at his poetry, his sonnets. Shakespeare is a renowned sonneteer as well as a playwright. So we're going to look at these, and the sonnet is its own poetical form. It's 14 lines, rhyme scheme of A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. And if that sounded like gibberish to you, a rhyme scheme, you mark that by putting the letter of the alphabet after the end of the line. So if my first line ends in cat, that would be my A rhyme. My next line ends in dog, that would be my B rhyme. My next line ends in bat, well, that would be another A rhyme because it rhymes with cat from the first line. So the letters match depending on how the rhymes match in the poem, and you mark them with letters of the alphabet in sequence, A, B, C, D, etc. So in a sonnet, you're going to have that rhyme scheme for an Elizabethan Shakespearean English sonnet. You'll kind of hear those referred to, that poetic form referred to those by those names interchangeably. Some will call it an English sonnet, some will call it a Shakespearean sonnet, some will call it an Elizabethan sonnet. But we're all talking about a 14-line poem with a certain rhyme scheme, usually devoted to love. How appropriate, Valentine's is upon us, coincides with Ash Wednesday, right after Mardi Gras. This New Orleans boy will remind you of that this week. So how appropriate, some sonnets from the master himself. So you'll find our sonnets in our textbook. You will just see the link under poetry. You'll see the Shakespeare sonnets from 1609. And what I want you to do, there are two kind of categories of Shakespeare sonnets. One set is called the Dark Lady sonnets. The person to whom these poems are addressed is this enigmatic, mysterious dark lady. There's some various theories as to who that is in history, the relationship to Shakespeare, etc. And then there are another class of sonnets devoted to another subject altogether. Some say a young man. Others say someone else. It's kind of an apocryphal, contested kind of theory as to whom these poems were addressed to. Let me just look it up real quick to address these. The Fair Youth, yes. Excuse me. So, the two classifications of poems in our Shakespeare sonnets, there's the Fair Youth sonnets, and then there are the Dark Lady sonnets. And they are numbered, notice the Roman numeral numbering that I've used in the assignment and in the announcement as well. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be comparing a sonnet that you choose from the Dark Lady set of sonnets and then one from the Fair Youth set of sonnets. And the idea, both sets of sonnets deal in different themes slightly, so you might find that these two, your two representative poems from both sets might have some similarities and differences that are remarkable and worth writing on. If you want to do some extra research, not to write your reader response, but just to kind of enrich yourself generally, you could easily do a search on this Dark Lady versus Fair Youth business, because it is pretty interesting and kind of adds to the mystique, if you will, and therefore grandeur and power of Shakespeare as well, if you ask me. So yes, it is a reader response on the two Shakespeare sonnets. All right, so read the instructions carefully for the assignment. There's a explanation sheet attached. be mindful of how you write your essays, of course, and your reader responses. They're uniform in that they're 12 point Times New Roman. That's the font. Heading, title, page numbers, upper right-hand corner with your last name. In-text parenthetical citations for textual evidence. Of course, make sure you're following the directions with, poetical devices and, finding the metaphor, simile, remarking on the rhyme scheme or meter. On that, these poems, these sonnets, these Shakespearean sonnets have a meter in iambic pentameter. An iamb is two stresses, an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So, ba-ba, that's an iamb, so that's where we get iambic. And then pentameter, pent, 5. So there are 5 of those ba-bums in a line of iambic pentameter verse. So iambic pentameter, the lines, the cadence of the line would be ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. An iambic pentameter, interesting to note, it's supposed to mimic your heartbeat. Ba-ba, 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 ba-ba. So that's just a note on meter for sonnets. And a lot of Shakespeare, even his plays, are composed in iambic pentameter, which is pretty challenging to do consistently throughout the entirety of a work. So that's pretty remarkable in and of itself. Otherwise, and that's due Sunday, of course. That is going to be the 18th. And then the other engagement assignment we have, it's voluntary, it's a blog. You don't have to do it, but what I am going to do, this is a new sort of thing I've considered, and I have done it already, is I'm going to take your blog participation and add that to your analysis essay as a +5. So everybody who did our first blog, I looked in there, and if you participated, I added +5 to your analysis essay on the yellow wallpaper or Young Goodman Brown. So I think I had said elsewhere, maybe in another announcement, that blogs are going to be added to your final essay as an extra credit, and I'll still maintain that. The points will probably be worth less. I'll just count all your blogs and give you a point per blog for the final paper. But for these literary analysis essays, the one we did for our short fiction unit, the one we'll do at the end of our poetry unit, and the one we'll have for our novella, I'm going to add the blog associated with that unit as a +5 on your analysis essay. So that improved a lot of grades. I went back to the blogs and plugged in a +5. The only restriction there is if you have a 96 or over, I am not going to give you extra credit. So let's say you got a 96 in your essay and +5, right? So that should make it a 101. No, I would just round you up to 100 to avoid extra credit. It makes things complicated when you do it in the grade book. So that is that. All right, so enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. Happy Valentine's Day and week, all fellow Catholics out there. Here we go for Lent. Other Mardi Gras celebrators. Fat Tuesday is Tuesday. Of course, you probably have school, as do I. And an assignment due Sunday, reader response on Shakespeare sonnets, and a voluntary blog due Friday, covering the last, I believe it's asking you to do an opinion on favorite and least favorite poems, most likely that. So voluntary blog due Friday if you wish to do it. Well, that's all I have. Reach out, continue to reach out for any issues, whatever I could do to help. Late assignments, if they are turned in late, if I can get to them, we'll be given half credit. But again, by and large, no late assignments are admitted, and expect a 0 if you are turning in something late, unless you have a legitimate extenuating circumstance. You need to let me know about that. All right, that is it. Peace. Talk to you next time.